Welcome to Kingdom Treasures. In the annals of history, few speeches have had the profound impact and enduring relevance of the Sermon on the Mount. Delivered by Jesus Christ on a hillside in Galilee, this collection of teachings continues to challenge and inspire people across cultures and generations. The Sermon on the Mount wasn't just a set of moral guidelines, it was a radical reframing of what it means to live a life of faith. In a world driven by power, wealth, and status, Jesus presented a kingdom ethic that turned societal norms on their head. His words were as shocking to his first-century audience as they are transformative for us today. As we explore these teachings, we'll uncover 4 key themes: the Beatitudes, a new definition of blessedness; heart transformation, going beyond the letter of the law; radical love and authentic spirituality; seeking the kingdom, trust and righteous judgment. Are you ready to challenge your understanding of Jesus' most famous sermon? Let's begin our journey into the depths of the Sermon on the Mount. Imagine yourself transported back to first-century Palestine. The air is thick with tension and expectation. The Roman Empire rules with an iron fist, and religious leaders interpret the law with rigid precision. Into this charged atmosphere steps Jesus of Nazareth, a carpenter's son turned rabbi, whose teachings are causing quite a stir. Word has spread about this charismatic teacher, and people from all walks of life have gathered to hear him speak. There are fishermen and farmers, tax collectors and religious scholars, the wealthy and the destitute. Each has come with their own hopes, fears, and expectations. As Jesus begins to speak, the crowd falls silent. Little do they know that the words they're about to hear will echo through the centuries, challenging the very foundations of their understanding of God, themselves, and the world around them. Jesus opens his sermon with a series of statements, known as the Beatitudes, Matthew 5:3-12. Each begins with the phrase, "Blessed are." But the people Jesus calls blessed are not who you might expect. In a society that valued strength, wealth, and religious performance, Jesus turns the tables. He declares God's favor on the unlikely, the overlooked, and the brokenhearted. Let's explore 2 of these surprising declarations. Blessed are the poor in spirit, Jesus says, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5:3. But what does it mean to be poor in spirit? This isn't about material poverty, but a deep awareness of our spiritual need. It's an acknowledgement that we are utterly dependent on God's grace. In a world that prizes self-sufficiency, Jesus blesses those who recognize their spiritual bankruptcy. It's a radical inversion of values that continues to challenge us today. Jesus goes on to say, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Matthew 5:4. At first glance, this seems contradictory. How can mourning be a blessing? Here, Jesus isn't glorifying suffering for its own sake. Rather, he's acknowledging the reality of pain in our world and promising divine comfort to those who experience it. This comfort isn't just a pat on the back. It's a transformative encounter with the God who heals broken hearts. Psalm 34:18. As we explore deeper into these teachings, the Sermon on the Mount remains a profound challenge to our understanding and a source of revolutionary thoughts. Jesus continues his counterintuitive blessings. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Matthew 5:5. In Jesus' time, as in ours, meekness was often equated with weakness. But the biblical concept of meekness is far from weak. Meekness is strength under control. It's the ability to respond to injustice and insult with gentleness and self-restraint. Jesus, who would later describe himself as meek and lowly in heart, exemplified this quality perfectly. Matthew 11:29. Next, Jesus blesses those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. This isn't about being self-righteous or judgmental. It's about having a deep, insatiable desire for what is right and just. Jesus promises that such people will be filled. In a world often marked by corruption and injustice, this hunger for righteousness is a powerful force for change. Isaiah 58, 6-9. As Jesus continues his sermon, he addresses a topic close to the hearts of his Jewish audience, the law. But his approach is radical. "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets," he says. "I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." Matthew 5:17. Jesus isn't interested in mere external compliance. He's after something far more profound, a transformation of the heart. Let's look at two examples of how Jesus deepens the understanding of the law. Jesus begins, "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder.' But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment." Matthew 5:21-22. By equating anger with murder, Jesus is addressing the root of the problem. He's saying that the attitude of the heart matters. This teaching challenges us to examine our inner lives and deal with the seeds of anger before they bear fruit in harmful actions. 1 John 3:15. But Jesus doesn't stop at identifying the problem. He offers a solution: reconciliation. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Matthew 5:23-24. This emphasis on reconciliation over ritual observance was revolutionary. It still challenges us today to prioritize right relationships over religious performance. Jesus applies the same principle to the commandment against adultery. "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Matthew 5:27-28. Once again, Jesus is addressing the heart issue behind the action. He's calling for a purity of intention that goes far beyond outward behavior. This teaching challenges us to guard our thoughts and cultivate a mindset of respect and honor in our relationships. Job 31:1. Jesus' words here are not meant to condemn us, but to show us our need for divine help in transforming our hearts. They point us toward a higher standard of love and respect in all our relationships. As Jesus continues his sermon, he presents what might be his most challenging teaching yet: loving our enemies. This concept was as revolutionary in his time as it is in ours. "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you," Jesus declares. Matthew 5:43-44. This kind of love, agape in Greek, is not based on feelings or reciprocity. It's a deliberate choice to seek the good of the other, regardless of how they treat us. This teaching challenges us to break the cycle of retaliation and to respond to hatred with love. It's a powerful, transformative force that has the potential to change both the one who loves and the one who is loved. Romans 12:14-21. Jesus then addresses three key spiritual practices: giving, prayer, and fasting. But his focus is not on the practices themselves, but on the heart behind them. "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them," he warns. Jesus is calling for a genuine spirituality that seeks God's approval rather than human praise. In each case, whether giving to the needy, praying, or fasting, Jesus emphasizes the importance of sincerity and privacy in our spiritual lives. He's teaching us to cultivate a deep, personal connection with God that goes beyond outward appearances. As Jesus' sermon nears its conclusion, he addresses two critical areas of life: our anxieties about the future and our tendency to judge others. "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear," Jesus says. He points to the birds of the air and the flowers of the field as examples of God's faithful provision. This teaching isn't a call to irresponsibility, but an invitation to trust in God's provision. Jesus is addressing the anxiety that often plagues us: offering a perspective that frees us to focus on what truly matters. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, Jesus instructs, and all these things will be given to you as well. This is a call to reorder our priorities, trusting that as we align our lives with God's purposes, he will take care of our needs. Jesus then turns to the topic of judgment, offering one of his most quoted teachings. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. He follows this with the vivid image of trying to remove a speck from someone else's eye while ignoring the plank in our own. This teaching isn't a blanket prohibition against all forms of judgment or discernment. Rather, it's a warning against hypocrisy and a call to self-examination. Jesus ends his sermon with the parable of the wise and foolish builders. He says that everyone who hears these words and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. When the storms came, the house stood firm. This parable emphasizes the importance of applying these teachings to our daily lives. It's not enough to hear or even agree with Jesus' words. We must put them into practice. As we close, I want to challenge you to embrace Jesus' radical approach to faith and life. These teachings aren't just nice ideas. They're a blueprint for a life transformed by God's love and grace. What aspect of the Sermon on the Mount challenges you most? How can you begin to apply these teachings in your life today? Remember, every journey begins with a single step. As you seek to build your life on the rock of Jesus' teachings, may you experience the transformative power of his words in new and profound ways. Until next time, may you be blessed as you seek first the kingdom of God. You've been watching Kingdom Treasures.